5, 4, 3, 2, 1. KenCast.
Hey everyone, happy Sunday. I hope you're all having a great weekend. I'm so excited that you're here watching KenCast, and we've got a great KenCast for you today. We have a very special guest. Some of you, I'm sure many of you already know him and have been following his content for years. In fact, I think we're coming up on the 4th anniversary of Cobra Kai Kompanion. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this week's special guest, Peter Bonasak. Peter, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. I made it. I'm on KenCast, everyone.
You have made it to KenCast. It's so great. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. Those of you who've been following our social media accounts probably know what this is about, or what we're going to be talking about today, because I had the great privilege of attending Paleyfest, the red carpet event, with Peter and helping him cover all of these amazing Cobra Kai celebrity interviews for the Cobra Kai Kompanion podcast. And some of you probably have seen those interviews. And if you haven't seen them, after this, go to his channel. Everything's in the description. His YouTube channel has all of the interviews with all the stars and the showrunners. We're going to kind of talk about that experience today. But Peter, I was wondering if you could just start us off with your just overall thoughts of that whole experience.
No, I like to use the word or the phrase it's wild or it's unreal. It was quite a unique experience. I submitted an application for media, and it took a few weeks. So luckily I had a ticket already to attend the event in the audience, but it took a while for me to find out if we'd be working the event, let alone the red carpet. So the red carpet was actually something that we found out after being approved, but kind of it was like the cherry on top. I thought that we were just going to be able to attend the panel for free, but like the red carpet was kind of like the kicker for us. It was like, wait, what? So we're going to be what is the red carpet? What are we doing exactly? So I had to get some questions answered, and then at that point I was like, I'm going to need a crew.
Yes, and at that point, I was very honored to get a call from Peter, and I was like, "Of course, And so, what we're going to see a lot of the sort of behind the scenes stuff. We're going to talk about that today. It's kind of a fun story. We met some surprise people. I know I did, and I can't wait to talk about all of that. But first, let me just say hi to everyone. We've got Peter fans here.
Yep.
Big T. Now this is Big T. He's been commenting on my stuff to make sure I am staying on the straight and narrow, that I'm saying the right things about Terry Silver. So thank you for joining us. This is Peter. And Strike First. Man, I love that new logo by Mark Kerr. Very cool.
Yep. Shout out to Cody there, who the host of Strike First Media.
Yes. Good to have you, Cody. Ben. There we go. I'm here. So it's great to see all you guys. Drew, how you doing from Last Row Podcast? Great to say he's a frequent KenCast guest as well. Anyway. Today we are going to start.
We didn't mention Mikey G says hello.
Oh no, I didn't. Oh yes, here he is, Mikey G. He also was at Paleyfest, and Mikey, we're going to be seeing a picture of you pretty soon. So
a few pictures, if you know what I mean. No, totally.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to start off with we have some news we got to talk.
KenCast news.
All right, so we're gonna talk about some news for all Cobra Kai fans. Okay. All right. The first. There's Mikey. Let's see. Okay, so Netflix is a joke. So you guys probably know this. I know that there have been a lot of LA-centric Cobra Kai events lately, and I know that that's in a way kind of frustrating to everyone who can't attend. But to everyone who can attend, this looks to be just like an amazing event, almost similar to Paleyfest, but also with even more entertainment, with discussion and music and stunts. And this is May 5th at the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles. I will be going. And so if any of you go, be sure to let me know. I will be around the theater, and I really can't wait. Here are some of the people showing up. So it's Ralph Macchio, William Zabka, Mary Mauser, Tanner Buchanan, Dallas Dupree Young, Kenny Payne, Martin Cove, Gianni DeCenzo, Vanessa Rubio, Griffin Santo Pietro, Josh, Hayden, and John, the showrunners, Brett Ernst, Dan Adut, and Courtney Hengeler. Now, you, Peter, have interviewed like everyone. Pretty much everyone on that list.
Everyone
right?
but 3, I believe, on that list.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, which is incredible, guys. So I just want to point out that Peter, more than anyone else, has had such contact with the show and the people behind the show of Cobra Kai. Go check out his podcast and his channel, because he has these in-depth interviews with everyone that you love on Cobra Kai. And if you're able to go, you will see these people live on May 5th. I know I'm really looking forward to it. But there's also another reason, too, if you're curious about season 5. Jon Hurwitz, who's one of the showrunners and co-creators, genius, of Cobra Kai, says season 5 is fully edited and awesome. Still mixing the second half and working on the score with our composers. Loving some new musical themes. Release date yet to be announced, but there should be some fun teases at Cobra Kai Netflix is a Joke on May 5th. Tickets here. Okay, so Peter, I know you saw this tweet. So what are you thinking might be going down here at Netflix is a Joke as far as season 5 announcements?
In terms of announcements, I really don't know. What I do remember with, and I actually just tweeted this right before we went live, that today is the 3rd anniversary of the season 2 premiere. Now, for those that were around back in the YouTube days, if you went to the, I'm forgetting the event. I believe it was the Phantom something screening, rather, where you got to watch the Karate Kid at the theater. And that was the first time
Yes.
I got to watch the movie in the theater, was for that event.
Yes.
I'm sure somebody would be able to put it in the chat, I'm sure. But along with that, you got a sneak peek of season 2, and out of context, we had no idea what episode it was from or anything like that. And basically, what they showed most of us was the scene where Johnny and Kreese are walking outside of the convenience store and bump into Daniel. So that's the very first episode of season 2. I would imagine that if you guys will be shown something from season 5, I would say it's going to be from the first episode.
Okay. So you think it's actually possible we could see like a clip, an actual clip?
Either a clip, because John's saying the first half has already been mixed, so I don't see why not an actual clip. Or you guys might get a clip of some sequences from season 5. But if they're still kind of working on the mixing, that's why I'm thinking maybe like one little scene from season 5, episode 1.
Okay. So and now this is the beginning of May. Given all this, if we do have something like that, do you have an opinion of when we're going to see the premiere of season 5?
My guess is in the fall,
Okay.
Because if we're talking about May, I would imagine at the earliest 2 months out. So we're looking at, what is that, July? So July, August, I would say between July and September is my guess. I know a lot of people try to say, well, Netflix released this show and all that. You know what? I don't know what the formula is and what factors into release dates and such. I would imagine they don't want to release a big show like a Cobra Kai around the time of any other shows. I don't. Stranger Things, is that this month? Or is that next month?
I think it's gosh. Is it?
Wait,
No, I think it might be in June. Is it June
oh,
or
okay.
July? I think it's towards the summer.
I
Could
so
be wrong.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
again, I'm sure we'll be corrected in the chat, but, something like that, I don't think they would pit up, Stranger Things season 4 with season 5 of Cobra Kai. Like, I don't see that happening. So somewhere where, not, less, bigger shows will be coming out, and that's just my guess between July and September.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm noticing in the chat a lot of people. Well, first off, Karate Kid Fanatic says yes, he was at that Fathom event that Peter was talking about just now. There's some discussion here about Miguel and Cholo being busy and maybe leaving the show, which is interesting. This is all speculation. We don't know this. And then Mikey says Jon Hurwitz said the filming of Blue Beetle won't interfere with the filming of season 6. So the fear is that now that he's getting super famous, that Cholo might not be able to appear on future seasons of Cobra Kai. What's your thought, kind of like knowing all the personalities involved, Peter?
So my thoughts with that is that I would imagine any talks with other projects outside of Cobra Kai, I would imagine that like they would have to work around Sholo's filming schedule. For Blue Beetle, they have to understand that, right? Like they're coming in with a brand new project, and Cobra Kai has already been established. They want to get Sholo because not only is he like an incredible actor, but clearly like he has an appeal, for being Latinx and the reach that his background will have, especially like Southern America. Like we see the Brazil fans all over social media. A lot of my followers are from Brazil,
Right.
and so there's that draw there. So you take him out of Cobra Kai, then you kind of lose some of that following, like one of the people in the chat just said. But that I would imagine negotiation talks, they would include that. Okay, yeah, this is when Cobra Kai films, so you guys are gonna have to kind of work around that. So it is gonna suck that Cholo may not be appearing at some of these live events, but that will allow him to be free when they start filming season 6. So
Right.
at this time that has not yet been announced, but Cobra Kai is doing so great right now. I would imagine that's the first negotiation, right? Or talk like Courtney Hengler, she's filming a George Clooney film right now, right?
Right.
So this is their off season to do other things.
Right. And right, like that's a really good point. He's obviously a huge draw to the series, but the thing is, once he appears in these other properties and he gets even more popular, that's just going to draw a wider audience to Cobra Kai if they keep him involved in the show. So I would think they would want him to continue to be part of the show to draw that huge audience.
Right. It is it's a win-win for both sides. But not only that, we do have to remember that Miguel is the next Karate Kid of Cobra
Mhm.
Kai. So I mean, he's the lead. You're not gonna have him bow out soon.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're talking season 5. A lot of fans of Karate Kid 3 who are following the series are speculating about the potential return of Mike Barnes. He's the character played by Sean Kanan. He's the guy who's hired by Terry Silver to torment Daniel. We've seen clips of him, so far, but people have been speculating that we might see Mike Barnes return in season 5. And so we don't know that for sure yet, but I want to let everyone know again, if you're in the LA area, there's an event, a special in-person event that's happening at the Kaizen Dojo. Now, this is the dojo that's owned by William Christopher Ford, who you can see there is Dennis. If you'll remember from Karate Kid 3, he played Dennis. And he and Sean are having this event where it's a seminar. Sean does a lot of motivational talks, and he's going to be having his signed book, and they're going to be having signed pictures. And I assume questions, and it's going to be a great live interactive experience at this dojo. So this is Sean's book, Way of the Cobra. So everyone, I just wanted to let everyone know this is May 22nd. And if you can make it, I'm pretty sure I'll be heading down to this too. So I will hopefully see you there. Now, Peter.
Ken.
Mike Barnes.
I
What are
heard-
your thoughts on what's your thought on the likelihood of Mike Barnes appearing in season 5?
I mean, I think it's a really good chance. I know that there's, things that are floating around social media. I do try to avoid spoilers, at all costs. And, we all think back to, was it prior to season 4, where, the biggest spoiler of them all was Billy, Sholo, walking out of their trailers in the Eagle Fang gi. And so immediately I'm like, that's badass. But also, this also kind of tells you that, at some point, Johnny and Daniel, like, it doesn't work out. We just saw, let's begin at the end of season 3. At some point, there's going to be a rift between the two senseis. And so that's a huge spoiler, because now it's coming. You're watching season 4 and waiting for it to happen. Funny enough, I just watched the episode last night, Match Point, but Mike Barnes, there is a line in the finale of season 4 where they're kind of setting up for a possible return of any legacy character. And to go back to Terry Silver, where the entire 3rd season had flashbacks of young Silver, and that season ends with a phone call. Like, there's no way you don't think that Thomas Ian Griffith isn't going to return.
Right.
And I got a lot of flack for having Robert Mark Kamen on a live stream reveal that Thomas was back in season 4. And so I was like, well, it's alive. And I didn't ask him, he just kind of volunteered that information. But speaking with John and Josh in an interview following that, they're like, well, we were setting up the character, so, like, if you weren't paying attention, basically, then yeah, I guess you didn't know that Terry Silver was going to be in season 4. So this one doesn't deliberately say who would be returning, but it's not their style to recast, especially a big role. We've had one recast so far, and that was only the Mrs. Mills, Allie's mother. So I don't know what the situation was there. I'm sure somebody does, but at this point, they've been all the original actors. So if we get someone back, it's more than likely going to be Sean Kanan, and we'll just have to see. I mean, because Terry says, like, a couple people, right? You probably know the quote better than me.
Right. Oh, I think it's I'm sure I know a couple of people who can help me run Cobra Kai while you're figuring out your legal problems. I think that's 90% it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, the door is wide open. It's wide open.
Absolutely. And, again, like those pictures that are floating around, they're not necessarily confirmation, because, again, prior to season 4, there's the actor, and again, I'm sure we'll be corrected in the chat, but Leo something, rather, he was from, like, what was it, Kicking It or Super Ninjas, or like one of those shows.
Right.
And he was pictured with, like, Jesse Cove, and people were like, oh, there we go, guest spot in season 4, or new character. No, he was, I believe he was filming just something down there and took a picture. So yeah, that actor never showed up in season 4. So it's very possible that Sean Kanan was also filming or doing something else in Atlanta. So, but I mean, again, but there is a setup for the return of Mike Barnes. So
yes, and I can't wait. If Mike Barnes is coming back, that would be amazing. We've got lots of really interesting comments. A lot of Courtney fans here. Mario asks, have any of you thought of going live with Courtney, who plays Amanda LaRusso, here on YouTube or Instagram? I mean, that's a dream scenario for me personally. And Peter, you've interviewed her, correct?
I have not.
You haven't?
Yeah, she's one of the 3. It was her, Dallas, and Griffin that I have not yet interviewed. That's going to be attending the Netflix as a joke. I did reach out to her back during season 1, and it was on Twitter, and she said, "Yeah, here's the my publicist," and things did not work out. We'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, as we, things are often very fluid. These people are very busy. As you said, she's working on a movie with George Clooney right now. So hopefully at some point she'll be available from discussion. I'd love to hear from her and her thoughts on everything. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, many a time she's the voice of the audience,
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And just a great character,
Yeah.
Great actress too. Drew asked, do you guys think the press around Netflix losing subscribers / pricing may pressure them to push for a release date sooner? Yeah. So, and to kind of give some background, Netflix, I guess, has been losing a lot of subscribers in the last quarter, and their stock price has gone down. Obviously, they still have like so many subscribers worldwide, but do you think, Peter, do you think this could have them make them alter their schedule if they're losing subscribers? Will they feel the pressure to put Cobra Kai out there sooner to retain people?
It's possible, but I don't know if that's a good business move. I feel, and I believe we can all agree that Netflix is probably the biggest streaming platform right now, and it was really a no-brainer for Cobra Kai to move to Netflix, right?
Right.
And for those that don't know, John, Josh, and Hayden, they came on to our channel. We did a live to talk about that move from YouTube to Netflix, and we were joined by Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, and since Stranger Things already has a release date, they have that going for them, and people that drop and are fans of Stranger Things, I would imagine they're gonna go ahead and kind of re-up on a subscription to watch that show. And at that point, I would imagine they're probably gonna keep it just a little bit longer to see what else comes out. So my read on a previous tweet by Jon Hurwitz about Ken, I don't know if you have it, where he kind of talks about the release date. It was during one of his Q&As, which we need to cover on Kompanion as well.
Right.
Do
I
you
don't
know
know
which
if
one
I
I'm
have
talking
it.
about?
I think I've seen the tweet. I don't know if I have it here, but yeah. So he was saying, what was he saying in the tweet?
So somebody had asked if there was any news on season 5, and he says that the release date has yet to been announced. And so I shared that, and I said that means there is one. And I think I saw somebody else that, and I don't know if it was in reference to me, but they were saying like, I don't know if that actually means that. I go, well, that's a matter of opinion. Like
Right.
my read is that there is one, and this doesn't necessarily mean anything because again, we have spoken with like writers and stuff like that, and we've talked about there we go, and
There
we
it
have
is.
talked
Okay.
about like fan edits and things that people post, and they talk about like they have to be careful with what they like on social media because
Yes.
like it might give the original poster like, oh, like this is confirmation, which it is not. Like it just might be like, hey, that's a cool edit and that's a good idea you have. Because like one of the things that I shared one time was Miguel in a white gi in front of Miyagi-Do. So I edited that, and
hmm
that was before we knew that they would be. This is before season 3 too, I believe. So we didn't even know that Miguel would eventually find his way to Miyagi-Do and etc. But anyway, so what I'm getting at, like, it could mean nothing, but I had quite a few people, writers and stuff that not only shared but liked the comment, that very post that you just shared. I just commented like that means that there is one.
Right.
Griffin and Dallas, whom I've not yet interviewed, both coincidentally shared that post of mine on Instagram. I'm like, well, what does this mean? Are you guys like trolling me now? Like, you guys know,
Right.
like, I haven't interviewed me, but Ken Bearfield, the stunt coordinator, also shared it. Yeah, I'm forgetting some of the names, but a few people shared that tweet or that post on Instagram that I shared. So I feel we may get a release date announcement then as well at the Netflix's joke. So that also might be something. Um, Long-winded way to get back to like I do not feel that Netflix would be pressured to release it any sooner because they have a lot of other things that they can release that we're not privy to because there's just so many other shows and so many other fandoms. So
Right.
they have a lot of content. It's just they're losing subscribers, but there's so many other options right now, and people are kind of like, well, what is hot right now? So I'm just going to cancel this, start up this, watch that show, and then they'll come back. So the numbers will go back up.
Right, right, exactly. And I just want to highlight from Dave Schrock, Ken and Peter are my heroes. So thank you, Dave. Dave is a brilliant filmmaker. He helped us
Camera
shoot
8.
Paleyfest. There's
Yeah.
going to be a picture of Dave coming up soon. So Dave, keep watching.
I am really sad because we talked about it, but we were the biggest crew and took the longest to kind of pack our things up and leave. And like the usher was like, "Well, we can't go home unless you guys go home." I wanted a picture with all of you guys with a Paleyfest background, so we didn't get a chance to get that. I really wanted to show off the crew, the people that were behind the camera that help us be so successful and put out such great content. So shout out to you, Dave, and again, can tell Amber that for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And we're going to get into all the great behind the scenes juicy stories of Paleyfest here in a second. Cobra says, I don't know if it's true, but apparently Netflix is losing subs because of some male pregnancy show. That's what people have told me anyway. I don't know. It might be, I think it might have to do with like they just raised the rates again. And I think it just might be getting cost prohibitive for some people. That's my sense.
The other thing is, aren't they working on some sort of like beta testing in terms of like the password sharing as well?
Right. Yeah, they're like eliminating it or something like that. They want to eliminate it. So yeah, it's probably just churn. Who knows? Plus everyone subscribes to Netflix. So I don't know. They're probably at that kind of ceiling level. So Cyborgana says William Christopher Ford, Dennis the Menace better be coming back. And now William Christopher Ford, we have news about him too. Obviously, he has the event. But Dennis the Menace, I remember that was something he said in your interview. And he was like your first interview on Cobra Kai Kompanion. Isn't that right?
In the Miyagi-verse. So
in the Miyagi-verse. Okay.
In the Miyagi-verse. Yeah. My first interview from Cobra Kai Kompanion, and it wasn't even called Kompanion back at the time. I was part of a network. I was a part of a different network that had an official TV podcast. So any host from the network, we can cover any show. And I was covering Cobra Kai. And I believe I'd have to look at the number. Matt Lewis might have been number 17 or something like that. He was the very first official Cobra Kai Kompanion interview. The first person from Cobra Kai under my coverage was Joe Suh, who plays Kyler. And then Sensei William Christopher Ford was my very first interview from anybody in the Miyagi-verse.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Everyone after this, go check out that interview. It's a really great interview, and we learned that Dennis the Menace was really the name that he gave himself. That's why he called himself Dennis, because he thought of Dennis the Menace. So
yeah, absolutely. And so I want to ask him before I start doing it, but I think we need to start referring to him as Dennis the Menace. Because I like even he acknowledges it. Like, why did I go with? Oh, he knows why he chose Dennis, but like hindsight, he doesn't think it's as badass. But if we can, I'll reach out to Mark, and I'm calling upon you other content creators out there. Drew Cobra Kai Kid, I saw you in there somewhere. If we can get some like really cool graphics and just show how badass Dennis really is, and maybe start kind of putting that moniker out there, Dennis the Menace. I think that'd be really cool.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe now's a good time to jump into the Paleyfest stuff, because we're talking about Dennis and William Christopher Ford, Dennis the Menace. So yeah, let's.
KenCast Paleyfest.
All right. Oh man, that's sorry, that's too much fun.
When I listen to, because I still pay for premium. Imagine that. I've never canceled it. So when there's lives like the one with you and Drew, I forget what you guys were talking about, but I was listening to that and I kept on hearing those drops. I was like, you know what? If I ever make it on there one day, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna react. Like, where's that coming from? So there's my chance. I'm always trying to think ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Well, check this out. All right, guys, check this out. Now, this picture was taken by Peter. Okay, this is the morning of Paleyfest. We met for breakfast, and that's Mikey, who's watching this right now. You've seen his comments. This is us meeting William Christopher Ford. He plays Dennis the Menace that we've been talking about in Karate Kid 3, and this was just so cool. It was just a great opportunity. And I don't know, Peter, I don't know if you could kind of briefly tell us like how this all came together and how we were able to meet him for breakfast along with P. Lonnie and everyone.
Yeah, basically the breakfast was just kind of like, hey, I'm arriving at 8:30 in the morning. I don't imagine anybody was gonna really be sleeping in or anything like that the day of Paleyfest, especially those that were flying in. Amy, who's one of my admins in my Facebook group, she was flying from Atlanta. She was also the one that drove me to the set. And so I knew she would be there and probably up early, Sensei Pialani, since a bunch of us were going to be in town. I would imagine she would be up for such a thing. And Mikey was picking me up. So it just kind of made sense. Let's go have some breakfast. Now, Sensei William Christopher Ford, I was supposed to meet back in December of 2019 when I went down for a Disneyland trip with a family. That's where I ran into Mary Mouser for the first time, and then the
Hmm.
next day I would go to Sony to hang out with John, Josh, and Hayden, which at that point I had not yet met John and Josh in person. Josh would end up not being able to show up. It was his birthday, and there were some other things, so I only saw John and Hayden that day. But since it was Christopher Ford, we were unable to meet up with because of LA traffic. I never factored in a lot of the red lights and the stops and all of these things. So there was a few times where like, okay, well, what about this time? What about that time? It just never worked out. And so and I think he, and you heard the story too, Ken. Like he credits me for kind of like keeping Dennis afloat, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like that's you, like
Right.
that's not me, that's your character. People love Karate Kid 3. And you know, he in his opinion, like he says that, you know, it's not a good movie and all that, but no, there's fans.
Oh,
But
on that who are watching right now, like this
yeah,
channel, we've got a huge soft spot for Karate Kid 3.
yeah, so like he just, you know, and like it, that's is a super kind thing to say of him, for him to feel that way. But he's been really wanting to meet me in person, so I was like, hey, you know, we're gonna do a breakfast if you can make it. And he's like, I'm there. You know, and you know, since Mikey, he got us some premium seats together. I had the free ticket, so I offered it to Sensei William Christopher Ford, and so he was able to attend the event in the evening as well. And I think it was a nice surprise for a lot of people too, who were just like, hey, that guy's Dennis, you know. So he got to
Right.
see some fans afterwards, probably before as well. But yeah, so he was able to show up and kind of tell you guys his story.
Right. Which is absolutely fantastic. And as people who watch this channel, stay tuned because I had a chance to talk with him about all this stuff as well. So I'll have an interview with him coming up hopefully in the next week or so. So we ate breakfast together. And so Peter had this idea that we needed to recreate the poster of the Breakfast Club. Okay, so this was so Sensei William Christopher Ford, you can see him there, and then P. Lonnie, there's Mikey and Peter, and then I think everyone is in their correct pose for the Breakfast Club poster, except for me. I was kind of the odd person out, so I kind of went rebel there. I
So
kind of
you
guessed.
you were the extended cut, the character that we didn't see from the 1984 film.
Right. And as you can see, my character was just way too angsty even for that film. So they just cut me
Exactly.
out. But
Yeah, so we George Lucas didn't put you back in. So
that's right. Yes, with digital technology. So it's so that was a lot of fun. Here's something Drew said. I hope the perspective on Karate Kid 3 changes, especially with the newest Cobra Kai season. It deserves more respect, and I wish the actors feel somewhat. Uh, they do seem to feel a bit down on it, and you wish that they wouldn't feel so down on it. It's just like you can imagine like the years of bad reviews and people saying they didn't like it, that they kind of dismissed it themselves, but hopefully they realize that people enjoyed it. And I think what you're saying too is that Sensei William Christopher Ford, he's starting to feel that love, right?
yeah, I feel like he is starting to embrace it a little bit more because of, yeah, the love. That's the great thing about Cobra Kai, right? Like they add all these like little elements to the previous movies, and so like when you go back and rewatch the movies, you're like, oh wow, well there's this thing that they talked about in Cobra Kai, and here it is. And so that's what I did with the very first movie after season one. I went back and like, you know, I've told people like, yeah, I'm a big Karate Kid fan, but I couldn't sit there and quote the movie with you guys. You know, I spent my time doing that with Back to the Future with those fans. And so the Karate Kid, like I've always loved the character of Mr. Miyagi. And so
Hmm.
when Cobra Kai was coming out, I was like, yeah, I'll check out the show. And so
Yeah.
when I watched season one, I was like, well, that's amazing. I'm gonna go back and watch the movie now. So I went back and watched the movie. I was like, oh, different but same. The episode title of episode 9, that's something Miyagi said. Like, and you know, like I just never really paid attention to that line because like he's
Right.
holding the picture of Allie and Daniel from golf and stuff. So that's what I was always focusing on. So it's really interesting to find out, like, you know, what were you focusing on, and instead in the background or like a piece of dialogue, they like would reuse in Cobra Kai, so a lot of the times it is the titles. But there's other things too. Like again, I was kind of rewatching Match Point, and there's that line where Eli's like, weeks, how many weeks? 5 weeks, that
Right.
whole line. Well, that's from Karate Kid 1.
Right.
So that's what it was like for me to kind of rewatch that first movie. Now I haven't gone back and watched the Karate Kid 3 yet, ever since the release of season 4, just scheduling wise. But
Right.
I do want to go back and see how it changes my view on things. And so that's one thing that Cobra Kai does for these movies, is that it does make it that much more better, and you get to, pardon me, you get to understand it just a little bit more, at least in terms of the character. But Kento, what you were saying earlier, that yeah, when Ralph Macchio is out there still kind of saying like, yeah, it's still my least favorite, and Robert Mark Kamen, who came on to my show, was still like, yeah, it was a cash grab, and so all of that, it doesn't, it's a little, it's a bit of a bummer where you're like,
Right.
oh man, you guys didn't really put your heart into it. But but think about it. It's also like what, 5 years after the first film. It was the third movie. I think there was like a really old interview with Ralph where he's like, well, I signed on for 3 movies, so I had to do it. So there was all these things, but I do hope that maybe they start to embrace it a little bit more because of these next, season 4 and hopefully season 5. Be like, man, okay, all right, you know what, you guys, 3 isn't that bad.
Right, right. And that, to me, as a movie fan, and I'm sure it's a fan of music or whatever, if you like something, it's always a little bit disheartening when the creators behind that sort of disown it. It's like, oh, but I liked it, but the people involved in making it don't even like it, and it's always kind of disheartening. And so, like, I wish creators wouldn't do that as much. Like, I wish they would kind of own these things, because they do have fans, and Karate Kid 3 definitely has fans, and there's a lot of good work in there. And I like what you're saying, Peter. I know it's not exactly what everyone kind of set out to do,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of great work in that. Dude has an interesting comment. I wish Bill Conti's music would return for a new film that is set after season 5. I'd like to see Mike Barnes with his own dojo, something high tech and swank returning. Maybe a return of the Ennis house, the Ennis Brown house. So yeah, that's a cool thought. And I know that everyone has said anything's possible. Spin-offs, movies, anything's possible. So that would be great. Now, I want to get into kind of Paleyfest here. So later on in the day, after breakfast, we went to the Dolby Theater area. Okay. And we had the special entrance for media, and there was a line, and we had very strict COVID protocols because we were going in to meet the cast, and everyone had to be, disease free. And I don't know, that was kind of an intense moment, don't you think, Peter? In terms of like just getting the anticipation, you realize that you are going to be on the red carpet with all these people. Can you talk about what you were going through at this moment before we were setting up on the red carpet?
Ken, you used the perfect word, and I'm surprised, like after all this time, that it has yet to come up, but it was intense, absolutely. Mikey, who's in the chat, and Ken, you joined Tony on my show. Tony, who's also the host of Queen Cobra podcast. You guys came on and shared your perspective on what things were going. Tony happened to be at the where do we go, Dave and Buster's.
Dave
So
and
she
Buster's,
saw, yeah, so she saw me before you saw me, so she also kind of saw me starting to kind of get in that headspace where I just felt out of my element for a little bit there. I was like, most of my interviews, I go in with maybe a few questions that I want to ask, whether it's from the show or for something personal about them, but I don't go in with every question written. That's just not my jam. I want more of an organic conversation, and I feel that's why people do like our interviews. And so I was sitting there, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna be there with like people. I'm gonna be there with Entertainment Tonight. I'm gonna be there with Sweetie High, who has like over 1 million followers on Instagram. All of these verified accounts. I'm going to be standing next to on-screen talents who do this for a living. I'm there on my own dime. So things were really starting to really mess with my head. I was like, well, what if I don't ask the right questions? What if I forget questions in general? Like, what am I going to do? And so at this point, like, I have not yet met Amber and Dave. And so it's like, I don't even know who my crew is. Like, what are we even going to be doing? And like I feel we still hadn't even like figured out in terms like the camera. Like we didn't even. You guys decided we were going to do multicam right before we were going.
Right.
The red carpet might have already kicked off at that point, to be honest. Right?
Right.
Like you guys were still talking, and like it took a good 30 minutes before my first interview, which was Gianni, came down.
Right.
So we still had time to
Yep.
kind of work that and all. See, so
So here's a
you,
picture. This is us getting ready.
yeah,
And I think at this point we have two cameras set up, but you can kind of see just everyone. I don't know if you can see people like on the right, that's where Peter's standing. That's where all the stars would be coming down. And on the left, that's where all the crews are set up. And you can kind of tell that wall kind of near the staircase, that back wall doesn't leave a lot of room. But luckily we had just enough room to set up our equipment. Because as Peter said, yeah, we had multicam, two cameras, and then also he was running his live stream. And luckily we had
right.
just enough room.
Yeah. So the people that you're seeing there, that's not Dave, right? So like
Right.
that's not even our people that we're even looking at right now. So where we're standing, we are third from the end. So on the opposite side of what you guys are looking at, that's where the cast will be coming down. The staircase that we're staged next to, nobody's coming down that, but above us, the second and third floor is filled with fans just looking down. And I don't think you have this shot, Ken, but Sensei Piolani, she actually has a picture from, I believe, the second floor looking down, and all you see is my head. So
Wow.
everyone's vantage point was me. So if you're looking on the other side of the stairs, you can probably see the cast, or the people walking up and kind of starting down the red carpet.
Right.
But so like I kept on looking up, and the nerves were, kung fu fighting, and so like I don't know when you saw me, because when I came down from Dave and Buster's, what was
Right.
your impression? Like, what was I pacing? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think you were focused. You were going over I think everything in your brain. You were kind of just really what anyone would do in that case. I think you were very focused. You could tell that there was adrenaline, and I think we all felt that too, for ourselves. But that, which is a great thing, coming from, I've done some performing before, and it's always great because that means you have nerves, you have energy that you can ride while you're doing it, and that's exactly what you were doing. Here's Dave and
There we
Amber.
go.
So this is Dave Srock. This is when we first went in. We all were wearing masks, and I think this was because we weren't sure who was COVID cleared and who wasn't, and eventually we could kind of take them off. But here's Dave. He was also DP of Cobra Cole. If you've seen Cobra Cole, he was the director of photography for that, and he was running our second camera. Did really an amazing job. And then my wife Amber is behind him there, and she was helping us out as a photographer and also production assistant. So we were kind of we were having fun. You can kind of see the equipment. Okay, so Peter, this is beforehand. We were waiting for, and I don't know if Gianni was way down the carpet, but things were going slowly. Live stream was on, and you were there, and so I was like, you know what, we need to interview Peter. And so I jumped out, grabbed the microphone, and I think that was kind of a fun interview. I enjoyed that.
I did too. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and because let me see, I believe this was part of. You sent me 3 different clips. I believe this was part of Peter's moments or something like
Yes,
that. And so
yes,
like it was a while after the actual event before I even saw this. So I don't even remember how I was. And so when I was watching back on it, I go, hey, you know what? I did okay. And I think that made the world of difference there.
yeah,
In the following actual interviews with me behind the mic, feeling and looking a little bit more natural too. So I didn't quite pick up exactly what was going on, but I thought I would play along with it. And just hindsight, I wish that I was talking a little bit more and kind of just being a little bit more playful. I think that would have kept me a little bit more alive, but also just kind of thinking back, like 90 minutes of me standing there, if you go back and watch the live stream on Instagram, many a times I am just standing there looking around or looking down, and I do think that maybe that was best because I got to also kind of conserve some of that energy. Because if I was just like go 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 for 90 minutes straight, I think I would have been like tapped out and maybe fell asleep during the panel, or maybe like
Right.
there was a little bit of me like after getting the B rolls. I was on such a high that I was like, you know what? I don't know if I need this panel. Like I'm a little bit more exhausted, and I'm just gonna sit there and take it all in. But
Right.
I am glad that I still went in and sat down and enjoyed the rest of what we got to see.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was such like great stuff. Here's you and Gianni. So this was great. This was the first interview, and this obviously, how can you not help but be charmed by his amazing suit, right? Like
Right.
that you got to see the suit in person, and what were your thoughts of this moment when I think you're waving to all the fans. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Because the first time they did this was, I don't remember, it was before or after season 2, but it was YouTube Days 2019. I'm sure somebody will correct us, but
mhm.
it was at probably where the Paley Center was usually held at. This is the Dolby Theater, so it's a completely different venue. And if anybody has seen pictures from 2019, there was a much smaller stage, and the audience, the distance between them and the stage was a lot closer. And after the event, you would be able to walk down and take pictures and chat with the cast, which some of our moderators like Pialani and Amy, they did that. And Pialani has this great video of her daughter talking with Cholo. And so since this was Dolby Theater, much bigger, bigger stage, and again, we have fans looking down, made me nervous, but I was just like, Gianni, what do you think of all this? Look up. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't even see them there. So he's like, hey, so you can hear that in our interview as well. Him just like acknowledging them. And like, yeah, everyone starts screaming down because we're waving at them. So, yeah, I was just trying to use like our elements, and I don't know. I wasn't necessarily like, what can I do to be different? But I was just like, be me. And like, if anybody knows me, I always try to add a little oomph to what it is. Our breakfast club picture. I was like,
Right.
okay, well, yeah, we're having breakfast with some folks. We're going to take a picture, probably. But what's going to make this even cooler? Well, we got Sensei Ford with us. How can we use this? The Breakfast Club, like
Right.
everybody knows that movie from the 80s, and the 80s is the best era ever. And so I was like, we got to recreate that image.
Right, right, absolutely. Now, not long after Gianni, you talked with Gianni, we had now to everyone who doesn't know, this is we refer to as the big three. This is Jon Hurwitz, Hayden Schlossberg, and Josh Heald, and they are the creators and showrunners of Cobra Kai. Obviously, geniuses. And this is just a really great shot, I think, of you interviewing them, and it just really captures the fun of the event. And you've interviewed them before, but this was the first time you met them. No. You went out to set. You've met them. This is the first time you met Josh, right?
Correct. So
Yes.
Josh was the last one I had not yet met in person. So since we have some eyes and ears on us right now, if you say the term the big three, that's from me. So
Oh,
if you go back and listen to our audio podcast with John and Josh, it's not on the video interview on YouTube. If you go back and listen to the audio one, there's a stinger. I don't remember if I threw it in the beginning or at the very end of the interview, but there was some pre-talk before we actually started the actual interview. And because Hayden wasn't there, we were joking about like the big two or whatever, but they were like, yeah, that really caught on, right? And so they were crediting me like, yeah, I'm the one that started that. Because if you guys go back to, and Christy, who's in the chat here, she did this not too long ago. If you go back and listen to her like season 1 reviews, when the co-host at the time was Tom, in the middle episodes of season 1, at some point, I got tired of seeing Jon Hurwitz, Hayden Schlossberg, and Josh Heald. And so this was before like John, Josh, and Hayden too. Like how
mhm.
that's much more natural for all of us to say. At some point, I told Tom, I go, we need to come up with something a lot easier for me to say, man. Like, and I'm a basketball fan, and you often hear about the big three in the starting
Right.
five. And so I was like, I'm gonna call them the big three. And he's like, yeah, that's cool, or whatever. And so when I got them to come back, or not come back, but the very first time I interviewed them would be April of 2019. I think ahead of season 2's release. I'm forgetting. I mean, again, we're talking about 4 years of coverage here, but they came on, and if you listen to our interviews, I have every cast member do an intro, and this is before I had them like do lines from the episodes. I was having them kind of do their characters interaction or introducing anyway. So
Right.
I had an idea in mind, and like I don't want to say because it's a little embarrassing, but I had an idea. I was like, okay, what do you guys think about this? And I feel they were looking at each other, and they're like, no, we had this other idea. And so what they ended up doing was that apparently Martin Cove liked he heard the big three and liked that or something, and was referring to him, Billy, and Ralph as like the big three. And they're like, wait a minute, no. And so they wanted to do a thing where they're like, no, we're the real big three. No, we're the super big three. Yeah, you hear that, Marty? So there was, it was a bit of a shot at Marty, like, no, we're the big three. So anyway, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there that like, yeah, they credited me as like coining that from the very beginning. So Hayden was the one that gave us the tour. See, I thought the big three nickname was from This Is Us.
That's
See, and This Is Us came out. No, I think it came out before Cobra Kai. But no, I'm not saying I came up with the big three. I mean, it's a thing that's been around for a long time. But in terms of
Them.
the creators,
Yeah.
the big three,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But Hayden is the one that gave us a tour of the set back in August of 2019. John and Josh have flown back to LA to be with their family because this is right before they started filming season 3. And so John's like, oh man, I'm going to be bummed out because, really wanted to meet you guys. And I'm like, well, you guys are based out of LA. So if I ever go to Disneyland, maybe I can stop by and hang out or whatnot.
Right.
So fast forward to December, where we take a family trip to Disneyland. And my wife here, she let me take my oldest son to Sony, and there we saw John and Hayden. So I got to meet John for the first time, and not only that, I got to meet another star from season 1 of Cobra Kai, Hayden's parents, who at the time nobody knew that they were the older couple that Johnny's like, hey, he's never too old to learn to kick ass, in episode 3, I think it was. So that was Hayden's parents in that scene. So I met them. I met the Hurwitzes. And as they were walking up to us, John's mom, Eileen, she was like, is that Peter? Like, because she was one of our like early group members on Facebook as well. And so I got to hug the parents. They knew of us, and that we're this podcast that covers the show and interviews everybody. So it sounded like a lot more people behind the scenes knew about us than we actually thought. And so since Josh wasn't there, that was kind of like the running joke that I'm never going to meet Josh in person. And anytime we spoke to him, he was like a hologram or like, CGI or just somebody fake. Yeah, I've spoken with Josh, like interviewed him like 4 times. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, like especially people like knowing you and you don't even realize it, because after this, I was standing there behind the camera and I suddenly heard from the red carpet someone say, Ken. And I looked and it was Hayden. And I'm like, whoa, Hayden Schlossberg.
Which his face is obstructed, just for those that are wondering, far right there.
We got a couple. Now, these are just a couple pictures that were snapped. This is kind of like an impromptu moment. And they and all of them came over. And Peter, you whispered to them that it was my birthday, which it was. And they all gave me happy birthday fist bumps. It was really cool. It was really cool to meet John, Josh, and Hayden. They just had like a great energy about them. And I think it was John or Josh came up and said, hey, Ken, look, and pointed down the red carpet, and Thomas Ian Griffith was down there. And so that was funny because I've done obviously so many videos on Terry Silver, but just very down to earth, very cool. It was just great to meet them. They're obviously geniuses. We all love the show. Yeah. And so thank you, Peter. I appreciate you pointing that out to them. That was fun.
Well, the one thing I feel a lot of people do know, but maybe not as much, but they're fans like us. So they have said as much, that they're on social media. They're looking at content because they like this stuff too. Shout out to RJ. And
Mhm.
yeah, I see that people talking about like seeing Mary at Disneyland. I've shared that story a number of times, but yeah, Mary and Julia. That was the day before I saw John and Hayden at Sony. But yeah, they're fans, and like for your Terry Silver videos to blow up with the reintroduction of the character to like
Right.
a generation of new brand new fans. Um, I was like, there's no way that they have not seen a Ken Cole production of like a Terry Silver video. There's just no way because they're big fans too. Like Hayden talks in quotes,
Oh
of
yeah.
like Terry Silver, and
Right.
this is just one of those things. Like if you guys were surprised at like, oh, Peter doesn't know the quotes like many do from the Karate Kid 1. Like, do you think I know any from part 3? I mean, so
Uh-huh.
when Hayden was giving us a tour of the set, we were inside Miyagi-Do. Okay. And again, like I'm always looking for opportunities to create something, and like maybe I'll figure out what to do with this footage later. So I thought it would be funny if I kind of recreated the Nathaniel moment from season 2 where he's sitting there and Sensei LaRusso asks these new what's the expression, when you change sides, this is like episode 2.
Right.
You got Nate, Chris, and
Mhm.
all that came from Cobra Kai, and he asked him something, and Nate goes, "Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir."
Right.
So I'm doing that. I'm sitting inside Miyagi-Do, and I'm reciting those lines, and I kid you not, I did about 3 takes. After that first take, and also, who's directing me? Hayden Schlossberg is directing me in this, okay? So, the first time I go, "All right." So he says, "Go." I go, "Strike first, strike hard." I was like, I completely blanked on the 3rd line. So we do it again. So this time I say it, right? I say the 3
Right.
lines, and then what does Hayden Schlossberg say? "With conviction, Peter." And I'm like, so that meant nothing to me at the time until I rewatched The Karate Kid 3. I go, that guy was quoting Terry Silver to me.
Right.
So there was another time, for those that have been following me for a while, what a lot of people did not know from my visit to the set was I had taken a picture in front of the wall that says "Fear does not exist in this dojo." Of course,
Uh-huh.
nobody would see that until season 3 premiered. So Hayden was sitting on that picture of mine for like a year and a half. He would not release that to me in fear that I would, accidentally or otherwise, put that out there into the world. But yeah, there was if it was spoiler, he took a picture with his phone. If it's something that I can have, it was with my phone. And that was really the only spoiler. So I
Mhm.
released that, and people were like, "How, like you didn't even tell me?" I go, "Well, of course not. Like, if I want to continue getting interviews and like have the trust of these people, I can't share things like this, right?"
Right.
So when I asked Hayden for that picture, I'm forgetting the details of the actual conversation, but he said something to the effect like, "Well, the dojo's under renovations right now," or something like that. But that's like I think that's a quote from Kreese from season
Mhm.
3. So
Right.
that guy's always speaking in quotes.
Right. That's
But back to like long-winded way to get back to their fans of the Karate Kid 3 and Terry Silver. So yeah, I had to shout you out.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's a great privileged group. Even though Cobra Kai is super popular, I feel like it is a kind of a small group that can talk in quotes and kind of understand each other like that.
Yeah,
It's kind of a cool element of the fandom. Now, this is Peyton List. This was the first time you spoke with Peyton List, right?
this is correct. Yeah. I had been so yeah, I don't think this is like a secret or anything like that, but it's nothing like I really put out there. Um, I was in touch with Peyton's mom, and she put me in touch with Peyton's publicist, and so I was all like, "Oh, this is great," because somebody else put me in touch with Peyton's mom. So like a lot of the moms, they appreciate what we do, and they feel like we're part of family, and so they try to help us out where they can. And then even if it's just like introduction, and I appreciate that too. Like nobody's ever like handing me an interview. Like I still have to do the legwork. It's a matter of introduction. So I got introduced to Peyton's mom, who then put me in touch with the publicist, and I'm like, oh no, like I was hoping to avoid that part. But but credit to her, like she would always reply, and so like, hey, do you have a link to an interview and all these things. So there was some corresponding, and then the basically the last conversation was like, well, Peyton's currently involved in like a back-to-back production, so she's going to be unavailable for the foreseeable future. And so I just kind of put a pin on that, and I'll revisit in some months down the road, kind of thing. But then Paleyfest happened, and I'm like, well, there's my opportunity. So since I knew I was going, I reached back out to Peyton's mom, like, "Hey, I'm gonna get the opportunity now," and I kind of wanted to keep her, kind of up to date and posted on things like that, but also because I was like in talks with her mom, and so I didn't want to just like disappear and never reach back out. So I was sending her pictures as I got them with Peyton, and the interview, and she was just like, "Oh, this is fantastic! This is awesome," and so like I feel like that's some of you guys have said that out there, on social media, like, well, this is what kind of separates Peter from the others. This is what makes him a little bit different, because like these organic relationships that I build. And so I think there's a bit of an appreciation for that. So I was like, yeah, this is everything that we have with Peyton in it. If you decide to delete it, I wanted to share that with you, because that's your daughter. I'm a father of 5, so like if somebody's going to hand me like content of my kids, I'm going to take it, so.
Right. Colt asks, Ken, did Terry recognize you at all? Hang on, we've got a story coming up about that. That's really cool. And then Mario asks, how come there are no photos of you with any of the cast, Ken? And that's just because I was behind the camera. So I was running the camera, and Peter was interviewing the cast. So we were both there, but you'll see Peter. He was the one interacting with the cast.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if many, if all, if at all, were any of the other correspondents people out there asking for photos, because like I'm sure some of these talents, they have seen these other people before. But for me, like I don't know if I'm going to get another chance. But I also asked, the Megans. There were 2 Megans that were assisting all the media people, us, and I asked, like, is it like, are we allowed to ask for photos? And they're like, yeah, as long as they're okay with it. I go, perfect. So, I'll ask, and the worst that can happen is they say no.
Right. Everyone said yes.
Yeah, everyone was gracious enough. They said yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really great stuff. Okay, so this is a big moment, obviously, for me and for Dave Schrock, who's a big fan, and even my wife Amber, and of course you, Peter. But for everyone watching, I know a lot of you are Terry Silver fans, so this was a huge moment. We had Terry Silver, Thomas Ian Griffith, and actually just for this here, we got to do this. Ready? It's time for
KenCast, Thomas Ian Griffith.
Okay, so all right, here this is he gets his own introduction. Peter, you are interviewing. This is the first time you've interviewed him last summer, but this is the first time you met him, right?
In person. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we were the first interview after out of retirement.
Which a huge get, amazing, and everyone needs to go listen to that. Every Terry fan who's following this channel, who's seeing this right now, go listen to that interview. Go to his YouTube channel, or pull up the podcast and just listen to it. So much great information. And then so he's here, and now I'll say, like, we were looking forward to this. He is just so gracious and disarming and warm and nice, and people have said that, but it's really amazing when you see that. He's really very talented, but just a great person. Wouldn't you say, Peter?
Absolutely, yeah. He's very, very kind. Like, everything you hear about him is true, right? He's just a really big teddy bear. For those that didn't know very much about Cobra Kai Kompanion prior to listening to his interview, as you can imagine, because it was the first in so long, a lot of people tuned in. And that interview was also the one where we got the most negative comments. people were just like, oh my god, like what's up with these questions? Like, you guys are being like really hard on him and all these things, and he's taking it like a pro and all that. If you listen to our previous interviews, like it's on brand. Like, we ask them, yeah, it's a family movie, and I don't know, I guess I never really considered it a family movie. I just considered it a movie, right? Like, I didn't think it was directly, for kids or anything like that. It was just a movie to me.
Right.
But when Thomas Ian Griffith like referred to it as a family movie, and then the questions that we were asking him, so people were like, yeah, why are you guys being so serious and asking? Well, that's what we do. We want to get into the psyche of these characters, and especially the stuff that we saw in season 3. We want to get his take on it, and so yeah, there was a lot of like flack for like how we treated him or whatever, but I think he understood what we were doing. We were just trying to get more information from the little that we know, that is the Karate Kid Part 3.
Right.
There's really nothing out there, and so like this was the best that we can get. So we want to ask all we can get. And again, I try to have like these organic conversations. And I remember one of the comments, it was a bit of a shade, but I thought it was really funny. Somebody commented, "Oh, were you always tall?" Like, great question. I'm like, I mean, like, yeah, that was kind of how I asked it, but like, I wanted to know when he was smaller, like, when he was a young boy, was he short? Like, my oldest son, he was like shorter than most girls up until senior year, and he just shot up, and then he towered like most of them.
Right.
That's kind of the question I was asking, but it sounded like we had obviously a lot more positive than the negatives, and the negatives just kind of like they stick out a little bit more. But and so I think with this interview, he could have been acting, but like I think with this interview, you kind of see like, well, he clearly he remembers me from the previous year, because he mentions it too, like, well, when we last spoke, and just his interaction. I don't think he felt that we were too hard on him or anything like that. I feel he probably had an idea of what we were before going in to that interview, because you don't just randomly say yes, right, to a podcast / YouTube channel.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and another thing too, like this interview at Paleyfest, when he saw you, he really, he came up and he almost kind of like quasi surprised you and stuff like that,
Slaps
and
me on
just
the shoulder. Yeah.
yeah, very very
Jovial.
warm. So I think that was a great interview you guys did, just very very in depth. And here's you're interviewing Thomas Ian Griffith, and then so everyone can see Mario. That's me. See, I'm behind the camera, and I'm kind of shooting, and Dave's kind of on the other side. And this was just really cool to watch this interview. And then at the end, Peter, birthday present, which was really awesome, actually pointed me out to him, because it's kind of hard to see with the lights sometimes, who's kind of behind the cameras. And check this out. He knew exactly who I was. And
Fantastic photo.
yeah, and this was, and there's video here, and we haven't seen it yet. I'm going to put together a video kind of showing this, but I didn't realize this was all captured on video. But so you guys will be able to see this. But he just like thanked me and stuff. So yeah, he's definitely seen all this content, guys, and just very gracious and appreciative. And this was a thrill. This was the first time I ever met him. And so again, Peter, thank you for the birthday present. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I believe at some point I kind of addressed the live stream on Instagram, and I was just like, yeah, I'm out here representing Cobra Kai Kompanion, but like I am a member of this fandom, and like just me being there was like a win for us all. And so you put in so much work into creating your content, and like if these cast members have seen that stuff, I kind of want to highlight that, be like, hey, and I've seen his interactions with you too. They're no stranger to Ken Cole and his
Yeah,
wife. When I say they, I mean Mary Page Keller as well.
right. And it's strange because like it's amazing that they do interact on social media, and you can tell that there's that there. But it's just, for some reason, maybe it's because I'm like not totally young, it just doesn't seem real. Like it's like, oh, that's cool, but it doesn't seem real. And then when they see you in person, it's like, oh man, they really they are familiar with our content. You know,
I'm
it's
kind
really
of the
kind of
same
a
way. I'm
yeah,
kind of the same way, but I kind of just wanted to add. I think another reason that Thomas, agreed to come on. At first, he was like, "Well, I don't want to do video because like season 4 hasn't come out yet." I go, "No problem. We'll do phone and we'll just talk about Karate Kid 3."
right,
Okay, but also the interview before that, if I'm not mistaken, was with John and Josh. So he at least
right,
saw that, oh, okay, this guy has interviewed the creators, and maybe he reached out. It's like, hey, Peter reached out. What do you guys think? Like maybe he did that too. So there's so many
right,
like behind the scenes things on their side. I wish I knew. Like because I obviously want to thank, and I will never forget like those that helps me as well. Because I know often people are like, well, yeah, it's your hard work and stuff. I go, yeah, but there's got to be something in between, and maybe that's what it is. Like I'm so it's kind of weird to say like, oh, I'm so humble, to say something like that about yourself. But like, I feel there's always something else in there that's helping me get these, But at some point, I have to kind of admit, right? No, I did this. I got it myself. So I'm still kind of like trying to figure all that out too, even post Paleyfest.
right. Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. Just this experience. Like, and here's another. It's going to be another moment for you, Peter. Um, this was amazing. You had both Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. You were interviewing them both, and it was a great interview. You were talking about that scene with William Zabka. You know, where he said, "I love you too, Robbie." And he talked
Yeah.
about that. Everyone go check out that video on his YouTube channel right after this for sure. But at the end of this interview, there's this moment. Okay, there was this moment where
I'm not jealous.
William Zabka,
Oh, okay.
out of his own, he thanked you, just gave you a heartfelt thank you for all the work you've done for fans. So, yeah, so everyone watching this, like, this is pretty unique. I mean, this is, all of the cast, I'm sure, felt this, but like, he really just, it was moving. It almost moved you to tears, right, Peter?
Yeah, and I try to fake that by pretending to wipe away tears too. So that was the other thing. No, I really was getting glassy eyed, and just so that way I have some sort of reaction. I hope I didn't break like the basically what Billy was doing here, but I'm like I'm staring at both of them in the eyes, and like the words were I wouldn't have even guessed. I thought it would have been, thank you, and then they would have moved along like everybody else has. But we did this right after we took the picture. And for anybody that's seen the video, yeah, we take the picture, and I thank them. And before I think they're about to walk off, Billy takes the moment to share the few words, and then claps my hand in his. And so yeah, it was really genuine. And you know I I often like, do they remember? But I have not yet shared this post, and maybe I will today after the stream. But many people have seen the pictures with me and them from the Rose City Comic Con here in Portland back in 2018, and at that point, it was 4 months after the release of season 4. So not a lot of people, because it was YouTube. I think it was still YouTube Red, right? Because Premium, I don't think came until like season 2. So I'm out there already a huge fan, and I go to this con. Marty is there, Ralph and Billy. Ralph, as you'd imagine, had the biggest line. Billy was on. He was just coming back from a break, and there wasn't very many people waiting for him. And Marty had a few people too. So like, not a lot of love for Cobra Kai at the time. They were still being looked at as the people from the Karate Kid, and so I'm in line. So I spoke to Marty first because he had the shortest, and Billy wasn't back yet. Did that, and I spoke with Marty, got my picture, got in line with Billy. And when I get up there, yeah, hi, yeah, saw some of your movies back in the day. Know you mostly from The Karate Kid, but huge fan of Cobra Kai. Love what you do, yada yada. And then I said, hey, also, I do this podcast. I have 13 interviews under my belt, and I already had like this graphic, with all the faces just ready to show him. Right, I'm always thinking ahead.
Mhm.
He's like, yeah, let me take a look at that, and I show him my phone, and he goes, oh yeah, know all those people, right? You had like Hannah Keppel, Annalisa Cochran, Joe Suh, um, uh, I believe Vanessa Rubio was within that 13. Also, Rose Bianco who played Yaya.
Mhm.
So very notable people from the first season. And so, um, to humor me, maybe he's like, yeah, give me your information. And at this point, like, I have to go back and listen to the episode where I recapped the Rose City Comic Con, because I say it there, but I don't remember who asked for it first, whether it was Ralph or Billy, but one of them asks for my information, like, email and stuff, and they would forward it to their people. I'm thinking it was Billy. And so I'm like, yes, I'd be happy to give you guys my information. And so at this point, Billy shouts over to who he calls Macchio. He's like, "Hey, Macchio, this guy's got a podcast here. We should go on it." I'm like, "Yeah." They're talking to each other about this. Like, what are you guys doing? So I'm kind of flipping out a little bit. And so, I finish up with Billy to thank him, and then I get in Ralph's line. So we get up, I get up to Ralph. Well, my heart's jumping, because Ralph, I'm much more familiar with, and I've
Mhm.
seen a lot more of his movies. Love me some My Cousin Vinny, The Outsiders, and stuff like, all the common ones that we've all grown up with. And so, same kind of thing, telling him about the podcast, showing him the picture, gave him the info. And so, it never happened, right? Like, so I never got a call and whatever. It's fine. Wasn't really expecting for them to reach out, kind of thing, but it would have been nice. And so the move to Netflix, when Josh and Hayden said, yeah, we'll come on the show, we'll talk about the move, because they know that we will get into the nitty gritty of it all. And mind you, they already spent like all day that day on other media outlets and on phone calls and stuff to talk about the move, but we were going to do it in depth and live, so we're going to have a lot of people tune in. And
Mhm.
so, we kind of knew ahead of time, but what John ended up doing was tweeting out like, "Hey, yeah, tune into the live tonight. You'll never know who will show up." And so, like, some people thought like, "Uh-oh, there's going to be some big names probably going to show up, right? Maybe Ralph and Billy." And so they came on, and coincidentally, that day was the 36th anniversary of the Karate Kid. And so, when they come on, I also wish them the happy anniversary. And it's kind of funny that we're all doing this here. So, like, I would imagine they'd remember me from that too.
Yeah,
But
of
I would
course.
continue, yeah, and I would continue, reaching out to their publicist, trying to, get a hold of them and stuff like that. And we interviewed Julia Macchio earlier this year, and I didn't share the screenshots because I was just like, this is for me, kind of thing. But
Sure.
when Julia shared that she was coming on to the show, Ralph looked at the story, and he also liked my post that Julia was coming on the show. So
Oh,
so
that's great.
obviously, yeah, he was aware. And then, like, I'm pretty sure it was off mic, but Julia's like, "Oh yeah, the whole family, we know what you guys do," and all that.
Right.
I'm like, "Oh wow, that's really sweet." And so, when the Coves were coming out with their podcast, I reached out to Gary, who manages Marty, Jesse, and Billy, and I just shot my shot. I was like, "Hey, like, I love this idea of the Coves podcast. I would love to have Marty back and talk about this new venture." And while I'm talking to you, we would love to have Billy back too. Why not?
Right. Right.
That kind of thing. And, like, he was kind of just like, oh yeah, maybe later in the month. Now it's not a great time. And like, I reached back out and there was no reply. So I'm just like, whatever. That's fine. And so, Ken, I don't know if you remember this, but this was kind of early on as well. I was standing there, just looking at the floor, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
Gary walks by. I'm like, "Hey, Gary," and he looks over and recognizes me. So he comes over. He's like, "Hey," gives me the handshake. "Hey, good to see you," kind of thing. And I was like, "Yeah, good to see you too." And I forget like what we actually talked about,
Right.
but that was kind of it. But then I do wonder, like, if he ever went to Billy, it's like, "Hey, that Kompanion, they're here,"
That's cool.
a heads up. So I feel like some of them were kind of given a heads up, like,
Right.
by the way, this guy, that's who he is, kind of thing.
Right.
Because, like, if you go back and watch some of the footage, mainly the live stream too, the live stream got some angles you guys didn't get that I went back and I was like, oh my god. So Bill, like I haven't posted this yet, but Billy and Ralph, they walk up and they were actually standing behind me
Yes.
for a bit there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you guys were focusing on me and Thomas,
Right.
and you probably saw it just from standing there that they've been
Right.
there for a while.
And they, it's funny because it looked like, I don't know this for sure, but it looked like when they were walking towards you before that, they had planned to surprise you and say like, hey, it's Cobra Kai Kompanion together, because they say that in unison as they walk up to you. And so I think it looked like they kind of planned that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So
So that is awesome. I'll
yeah.
but what I do have is like, yeah, that entrance, like, hey, Kai Kompanion.
Yes. Yeah. It looks like they were talking to each other and say like, okay, we're going to go now,
Yeah,
and say
yeah.
that. So that was pretty cool. And then also this was a first for an interview. So this is the first time you interviewed Mary Mauser, Sam LaRusso.
Right.
So now, and as you said before, you met her once at Disneyland, which
Yeah.
is amazing. But what was it like interviewing Mary Mauser?
Well, it was at this point, like I'm right on a high. I just spoke
Mhm.
with Thomas, and immediately Ralph and Billy right after. And if you watch the footage, Billy says those really nice things, and Mary is in earshot. Now, I don't know if she was listening or heard, because she was actually speaking to one of the Megans,
Right.
which is what I was gathering from like the footage. And so, you know, Ralph and Billy exit, and I immediately turn around as if I'm just like, holy shit, what a moment. But Mary is standing there. So I'm like, okay, now we're going into talking to Mary.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, like the one common thing that people are saying in the comments is like, "Oh, she was so bubbly," and
Right.
we've seen all of this in the last a few years with interviews and stuff, and so I just think it put me at ease, and it just made me feel a little more natural, and just in my entire mind, I was like, "Does she recognize me? Like, was she kind of like, oh, Companion? And there's that thing with Disneyland we've heard. I don't know."
Mhm.
I don't know what they're told. I don't know what they're briefed on beforehand. But I was just like, her and Julia are so close. Maybe she saw Julia share the interview and was just like, oh, there's that guy kind of thing. So I wasn't sure if she remembered or anything like that, but kind of like speaking to her throughout that little interview, it kind of seemed, she at the very least was like, this guy's familiar. I feel like I've met him before, kind of thing. And she kind of hit me with the like, yeah, so good to see you, at the very end there. So I'm just like, and yeah, I was just like, oh god, I don't know, like I felt like I almost ended it a little prematurely, because I said, well, I know you got to get going, but I feel like I probably could have gone another minute or two and it probably would have been okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of those that if I can have the one back, I would have loved to have spoken with her a little bit longer.
Right.
Because again, she's like Samantha LaRusso. She
Right.
wasn't like a new character. I mean, obviously a new character in the universe, but she's been there since season 1.
Right. And my memory of this is she just had so much positive energy. It was just really amazing. It just kind of, I think, jumps right through the screen. Everyone should check out this interview. But yeah, it's almost like you could have kept, talking to her for a long time. And also what really struck me is how different she is from her Sam LaRusso character, like obviously, emotionally Sam is in a very particular place, but Mary Mauser's just like, I don't know. She's just very like, just, I don't know, positive energy. It's you can tell how good she is as Sam LaRusso just because of how different, the personalities are. So
Yeah,
anyway,
if people are familiar with Watch Party and his videos on Sam LaRusso, a lot of them are like, kind of, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say like unkind, but like he's not the biggest Sam fan, but there's plenty of those people that are not big fans of Sam either. And of all people, Watch Party was like, hey, nailed it, good job, and he only commented on 2 of the interviews, and she was one of them. And the other one was like with the big 3. So I think
right.
that kind of tells you a lot. Like if you haven't seen the very interview, like I think a lot of people were actually like, that was actually, whether 2-3 minutes or whatever, like it was still a good 2-3 minutes with Mary.
Oh, it was fun, and it was funny. Like I just
Yeah.
thought it was
Oh,
super
right.
super funny
Oh,
too.
yeah, the point where I referenced Spaceballs, I think made her,
Yes, yes,
gave her
great reference. It was
yeah,
amazing, and
and I'm
she
glad you
just kept
got it.
going with it, and
Yeah,
yeah, it was great.
and she played along too. She's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure, if that's what you want," like that kind of thing. So I think we were vibing a little bit there.
Absolutely. Now this was huge. So basically, you had Tanner Buchanan and Jacob Bertrand both at once. You interviewed them both at the same time, which was a really fun interaction. Like
But they
this
both
was
had to be called back too.
yes, they
That's
came
the
back.
other thing.
They came back.
They had to come back. So what was happening is that, again, we were the third from the end, and so everybody to, your guys' left was all, packing up, if not already gone, because they've gotten everybody. And Tanner was the second one to come down, and he kept on, like, leapfrogging around because, like, nobody is waiting for the next interviewer, so they're just going to whoever's free. And so I feel like anytime Tanner was, around me, and when he was free, I wasn't, and so like he would just keep going around. But as we were getting ready to wrap up here, I was like, hold on now, we have not yet spoken with Tanner. And so like I had to grab one of the Megans. I'm like, oh, she might have even come by and was like, did you get everything? And I was just like, oh, no, we haven't spoken with Tanner yet. And so she immediately pulls out her phone and starts texting. And then shortly after, she's like, all right, we're gonna get we're getting Tanner back out. So I'm like, fantastic. And so I kind of walk over to the live stream a little bit, and I saw some people were like, you haven't spoken with Jacob either. So I was like, oh no, like we haven't gotten Jacob. And so she starts texting, trying to get Jacob, and then she's like, all right, you're gonna get Jacob and Tanner both. I'm like, fantastic. So it'll make it easy, quick, and get them back on their way.
Yeah, yeah. And that was just like an amazingly fun interview as well. Like that, just really great energy. They were happy to be there. They were happy to come back, and I think this was right after this is when I guess we went up and shot some B-roll. So they left. We went into the second floor, I think, of the Dolby Theater and shot B-roll. I think I've got okay. So this is kind of what it looked like. We went up to this vantage point,
Right.
and we were able to shoot what was going on stage. And you can see they have all the cast lined up there, and it's really a huge, like it's huge theater. Like this is a theater that has the Oscars. The
Right.
Oscars are held here.
Can you go back one?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to point out, so that's me with the camera. Okay. So
On the right.
on the right,
Standing. Yeah, yeah.
staying with the far right. So what we were told is that we get 10 minutes from the first question.
Right.
Okay, so once the first question is asked, we got 10 minutes to capture what we can get, and then we have to go back to our seat or go to our seats.
Right.
So, Mikey, who would be sitting next to me, I think I didn't see it until like way later, but he had texted me. He's like, "Hey, are you coming?" kind of thing. But so this is what we got to do. We walked in, and at that point, they were wrapping up the finale of season 4, and it was Sam versus Tory, and like
Mhm.
Tory had just gotten knocked out of bounds, but she was in kind of. So that's when we
Right.
walked in. So we got to watch the ending of that. We got some of the footage when the lights were still down and all that. I got with my phone the crowd reaction to the reveal of Chosen. So it gives me chills
Mhm.
every time I watch it.
Right.
And so once the lights go up and everyone's introduced, you guys are already rolling. And yeah, I'm taking pictures as well. But since we only got 10 minutes, I got trigger happy. Just shooting whatever I can. Anytime anyone's looking in my direction, I'm shooting them, and so I'm trying to get all of that. So that's some of the pictures that you guys got to see that I've posted.
Right. Yeah, it's a really fun event. Like you were talking about, just being in the audience and such a big audience watching that season finale. That was an experience I didn't expect to have because we're all used to watching Netflix at home by
Right.
ourselves.
Yep.
And then so you hear just the oohs and the ahs and the boos and the cheers. It's like, wow, this is this is great. It's such a big experience, such a shared experience. That was a lot of fun. And then all the insights from the cast and crew. It was a really fun night. And I know if there are going to be future seasons of Cobra Kai, they'll be doing this again, I'm sure. So I'm sure there'll be opportunities in the future if you guys want to go. It's a great event. And then also we took pictures with so many people. This was Thomas Ian Griffith Daly, Christine, Here's a picture with her. Follow her on Twitter. If you're a Thomas Ian Griffith fan, she has like lots of great stuff and everything. And this was, and I don't have pictures of everyone else. I think I took pictures on other people's cameras, but this was just a great fan experience, wouldn't you say, Peter?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've never seen anything like it before, and I don't know if there's anything in the works for the East Coast, but from the little research that I've done, they've done New York Paleyfest before.
Mm-hmm.
So I did see something in Paley Center's story like last week or something where somebody was like, "Hey, is New York or the East Coast going to get any love? Like we're kind of missing out on some of these things." And their reply to that follower was like, something to the effect like, "We got you," or I'm kind of forgetting exactly what they wrote, but I was all like, "Oh, there might be something on the East Coast for those people."
Right.
So there's something to kind of keep an eye out. Maybe you guys can try reaching out to Paleyfest to get more information, but I can't announce anything that I don't know. So
Right.
could be exciting. Yeah. I've never
I
been to
know.
New York.
What's that?
I've never been to New York.
Really? Yeah, it's a very different town from LA, that's for sure. You should definitely go. If they have a Paley Fest there for Cobra Kai, you should definitely go.
I would definitely try to.
Absolutely. Well, Peter, so all I can say from my perspective is this was just a really incredible experience. I think I said this before, but I just want to reiterate, everyone associated with Cobra Kai, this is such a big show. We're all such big fans of the universe. And what struck me is that everyone associated with the show is just so gracious and down to earth. They're not like aloof and trying to, make you feel like, oh, they're better or something. They're just so great. They're just like regular people. And I think that was like my one takeaway. And it's just amazing that they're so talented and so successful, but just seem so relatable. And that was my big takeaway from the red carpet. I don't know, what are your takeaways?
We spoke with a lot of high profile people. Again, Ralph and Billy, they've been in the game for decades here. Thomas Ian Griffith, and his wife Mary Page Cutter, they wrote on Grimm. They worked on a Dolly Parton project that Vanessa Rubio was also in. I don't think it was the same episode, but they're still doing things. But everyone that we have met and spoken with, obviously the creators, who are fans of what we do as well. They've created these amazing movies. John and Hayden did American Reunion and the Harold Kumar movies. Josh did Hot Tub Time Machine. There was no egos on the red carpet,
Right.
and that was the other thing, like, the other people that were surrounding us and the people that were running it, no egos from anybody. Like we were all spoken to as equals, even by the cast members. So
Right.
that was something. I mean, I've never experienced anything like this before. So like I was a little surprised, I just feel like, the things that I have seen in reality shows and whatever, that I had a bit, maybe not an expectation, but like I just like, oh, just don't be surprised if somebody kind of speaks down to you, kind of thing. So went into it like that, and I also just thought that like, oh well, Kompanion is a podcast, is an independent podcast and a newer YouTube channel. So there was none of that. Like looking at this name, like what is that? Is this a fan show or something? So that was probably the best thing for me, just being
Mhm.
treated like an equal and kind of feeling that little bit of validation that we deserve to be there. And
Right.
I saw a lot of people, saying that to us, that they couldn't think of anybody more deserving and all that, and we appreciate that. But yeah, and just on top of that, just being spoke to as equals, and hey, did you guys get everybody? To make sure that we got
Right.
all the content for us, because it
Right.
isn't for them. That was the other thing too. Yeah, so it was just really amazing, and I just really wish I kind of knew a little bit more of the work, the ins and outs on their side, because I just want to be filled in on that. But I guess that's the thing about like what we do at Cobra Kai Companion. We want to be that fly on the wall, and that's why we ask the questions that we ask.
Right. Exactly. Well, and it was an honor for me to assist Cobra Kai Companion, to help you guys out, to be there. you and Bree do such a great job on the show, and so it was great to be part of that. So thank you for allowing me and Dave and Amber, and by extension everyone watching here, a window into the world of Cobra Kai. So thank you
Well,
very much, Peter.
absolutely. And thank you guys. Without you guys, nobody here would have been able to see any of that. Like I'm sure I would have asked somebody, probably Mikey, like, hey, I know you're here for this too, but can you be my cameraman? And it would have just been single, right? And
Right.
I don't know, probably slap on like a logo on the video. It probably wouldn't look as pretty. But Ken, you've done all the editing. Anything I needed you to clip, you were on it and sent it as soon as you could. So I hope you weren't like in the middle of dinners and you just drop your plate of food like, oh, Peter needs this, so I'll run off and do that. 'Cause I felt like you were just literally on it, like everything was almost on your phone ready to send or something like that. It was pretty amazing. So Ken, you've done a lot of great work. Dave, if you're still watching, I really appreciate you catching all the footage that you have. I saw some of your you went down there when the cast was like taking pictures. I'm like, oh my god, he got this too.
Yep.
So again, I plan on Ken, the stuff that you sent me, from Dave, from you, and the memories. I'm going to try to edit a little behind the scenes so people can kind of see, get a glimpse of what it was like to kind of see through our eyes what was going on down there.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely everyone watching this, subscribe to Peter's channel, Cobra Kai Kompanion. And then also, if you're not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. We have new content coming out. I'm going to do kind of a short behind the scenes video, kind of focusing on the Thomas Ian Griffith moment. We have video of it, so I'm gonna share that, and watch for Peter's new content, behind the scenes content, because it was a lot of fun. And I want to thank everyone for engaging in the chat, for watching today. Thank you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. You're all absolutely beautiful. In the comments to this video, if you want any content, if you want to see anything, please just let us know. If you have questions, we'll answer those questions. And I want to thank everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And Peter, thank you for joining today.
Absolutely, thank you for hosting this. It was a lot of fun, kind of reliving this, and hopefully nobody's getting sick of like me just resharing like the same stuff over and over. But some of it may look the same, but some of them might be different angles. So we'll see. But in terms of the video, yeah, they'll be the same stuff. But there's still a lot of images that I have not yet shared, just kind of different angles and stuff, different frames. But yeah, really appreciate it if you guys are on Twitter and have not yet, give me a follow, Cobra Kai Pod. I'm pretty active on there, so if you have
Yes.
questions, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Yeah, please give us a follow. All of Peter's information is down in the description. Check that out. You can follow my social media and this channel as well. I welcome everyone to this, and we'll be looking forward to doing new KenCasts in the future. Peter, you are welcome anytime for sure. We've loved having you today. So,
Absolutely.
And we look forward to all the new Cobra Kai news that's coming down the pike. So, we'll be in touch. Absolutely. So thank you, Peter.
No problem. I was just scrolling through to see if there's any questions that maybe we missed, but I think we
Yeah, if
either
you guys have any last
answered.
questions, if you got a couple minutes, I think there was one. Someone asked what Peter thinks about the possibility of Mike will be an enemy of Terry because they were never friends.
Well, it would be really interesting to see if and how they reintroduce Mike Barnes, because he was just someone Terry hired. So I would imagine that after the events of Karate Kid 3, they really lost touch. So it'll be interesting to see, if like Mike even still remembers. Obviously, if he's reintroduced, he will. But like, what are they going to write for that? But I don't know if it's an enemy. He was a kid. He was
Right.
17 years old, and wanted 50%, right? Or
Mhm.
so yeah, we'll see what they give us. But being an enemy, I don't know. If Terry has Mike Barnes in mind to help him run Cobra Kai, I don't think they're going to start off us with that, because there's just so much going on the show. I feel there's going to be a little less of the oh, let's throw some tension in here kind of thing. Like, I think it's going to be a little bit more, I don't want to say pedestrian, but I think I don't think they're going to be so clever with a few things. So I think they're still going to give us that Cobra Kai feel with everything, but I think there's going to be like less surprises, if
Right.
you know what I mean. Like, they're going to be reveals and things like that. But I think like in terms of the story, it's just gonna kind of flow a little bit better and not have us think too much, I feel.
Right. And I think for me, it'll be interesting to see if they fill in any gaps, like any relationship, any moments. If, of course, Mike Barnes, we hope he's coming back. If he does, what happened after Karate Kid 3? How did they end? Like, was Terry kind of okay with Mike? Was Terry upset at Mike? And then, I did a video called Mike Barnes Master Bully. Check that out. I tried to bring up some plausible scenarios for Mike Barnes. And I guess we have one last question from NASA here. Do you guys think Chosen and Daniel will discuss Sato at all?
That's a great question. I feel like it will come up, right? If these two guys who are now basically what Sato and Miyagi was, I feel Sato will be brought up because, like, the spirit of Miyagi continues to live on, with Chosen being a much bigger part in season 4 than he was in season 3. I feel there's going to be some more Karate Kid 2 stuff that's going to be brought up for sure.
Yeah. So great question. I agree. I think there's a good possibility that could come up. So we'll have to wait and see. So thank you guys. Thanks for all your questions. Peter, thank you for joining us today and for spending I guess we're on the West Coast, so it's the morning, for spending some of your morning with us. And it was just great to have you here. And we hope to someday have you again.
I'm, my door's always open for your invitation. So anytime you'd like to have me, we'll definitely work it out.
Thank you, Peter. I am honored. So we're all honored. So thank you very much. And everyone, have a great day. And we will see you next time on KenCast.